Okay, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Right, so this is Surah Ad-Duha. Now, Surah Duha in the Quran is the 93rd chapter. Okay, chapter number 93 in the Quran. And this is a surah which, you can see, contains 11 ayahs. 11 ayahs in the surah. And a bit about the background of this surah. This surah was actually revealed in the Meccan period. Okay, so imagine this is the life of the Prophet ﷺ. And he was 40, and then he was 63. So in this surah was actually considered one of the first surahs that were revealed, and it was revealed in the beginning of Islam. So imagine roughly about here. This is where it was revealed. Now, one thing you need to understand about the Meccan surahs, like I said before, was Mecca surahs, the prime themes of the Meccan surahs are stories of the past, is belief, aqidah. You have character, about the character. These are the main sort of themes that you have. You have some rulings as well, but these are the main themes that you have. And the reason for these themes is because the atmosphere, the environment, the conditions that the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims were going through were very difficult. So because they were very difficult, they needed as much support as they could to strengthen the foundations of Islam. Because remember, if you have a building and the building is built on strong, firm foundations, then it's very unlikely that the building will collapse from underneath. And so if the foundations are strong, there's more chance of everything else building upon it being strong as well. And however, if the foundations are weak, then what happens is the building can all collapse. And this is one of the the things, that the lessons that the ulama derive from this, which is that when you're starting off giving da'wah to people, when you're practicing Islam, it's important to remember to always have virtues, always have stories you can relate to, how early Muslims lived their lives, how they struggled in life, to strengthen your character, to become a better person. Like they say, when strike the iron whilst it's hot. So when you're going through difficulties in life, that's the best time to shape and to mold yourself. So this is why you see that the verses contain a lot of the hereafter, Allah being one, Allah Ta'ala creating everything, how the prophets went through difficulties, how pious people went through difficulties, and how they remained steadfast, etc., etc. So anyway, that's a bit about the background. Now what happened at this time was this. There was a woman, her name was Jamil, according to the Mufassirin. Her name was Jamil. Anyone know who Jamil was? Okay, excellent. This was Abu Lahab's wife. And in the Quran, she's mentioned once. She's mentioned once in the Quran. Anyone know where that is? Yeah, Surah Lahab. Allah says about her, وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. Allah only mentions one thing about her in the Quran. Yeah, one characteristic of hers. And Allah Ta'ala, He emphasizes it a lot by giving it fatha. One of the things of the Arabic language is that vowels play a big role in emphasizing and giving effect to the words. So if you give a word a fatha sometimes, if you give a word a fatha for no apparent reason, the Arabs do that to emphasize something. So like if I want to say, like for example, if Zayd is a really strong person, he's very, very strong. very, very brave. I say, for example, you know Zaid, say Zaid, Zaid, Zaidun al-Qawiyya. I'll give it a fatha. Now if I say Zaidun al-Qawiyya, it either means one or two things. Either I don't know Arabic, and my vowels are all messed up, or Zaid al-Qawiyya is used to say, you know Zaid, that strong guy. Zaid the strong guy. Zaid is a strong guy. He's a really, really, really strong guy. And I wanna tell people about this. I wanna express it. So you give a fatha here. This fatha. This isn't usually used, not a title necessarily, but it's just when you wanna tell people about a person, right? And you really wanna emphasize it. So Zaid is al-Qawi. Zaid is the strong, really, really strong guy. So Allah Ta'ala, He really wants to emphasize this about Imra'atuhu, about the wife of Abu Lahab. He says, وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. She is that woman who really, really carries wood. She's the carrier of wood. If you want to know a woman in the world who carries wood, she's number one. She's like top of the league, top of the table for that. What is this carrying wood? So some of the Mufassirin say this refers to carrying wood was an Arabic saying, like someone who goes around spreading rumors, spreading bad things about someone, criticizing, going around, putting comments everywhere. Basically like a troll. Yeah, nowadays you got that concept, internet troll. So she was a troll. وَامْرَأَتُهُ حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. Yeah, so حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. That's one meaning. Another meaning some Mufassirin have given is حَمَّالَةَ الْحَطَبِ. It refers to her deeds. So her deeds are like wood. And why do you think wood is mentioned? Her deeds being like wood. She's a carrier of wood. Not necessarily hard. I mean, you'd use hard for like if it was rock or something. Any ideas? What's going to happen to wood? What usually happens? Where does wood end up? Ends up burnt, isn't it? Excellent. So Abu Lahab. Lahab means flames, fire. And the theme of the surah is being burnt up. It's about being burnt up. So she's someone who's actually fueling that fire. Imra'atuhu hammalat al-hatab. Anyway, this is that's just a little bit about background of Jamil. Quran mentions. That's all we have to know about her according to the Quran. In other words, she doesn't have a good reputation. Her track record is really terrible. If you owned a company, you wouldn't want her to even use the toilet in your company. This is how bad track record she has. Stay away from her. She's bad news. So she comes to the Prophet ﷺ one day, and the Prophet ﷺ would receive wahi in the night. So at night time he'd receive wahi, and then in the daytime he'd propagate what he was given. He'd convey it. So any verse, like for example, اقرأ بسم ربك الذي خلق, he'd go out to the people and he'd propagate to the people. Surah Fatiha was revealed, he'd go out and tell the people. Surah Muzammil was revealed, he'd go out and tell the people. So people had this regularly, he'd go out and tell people new verses that were revealed. So what happened was, there was a few nights where he didn't come out in the day. He didn't come out to tell the people. So she got this opportunity. Sometimes you have a person who, you see someone going through good times, and then all of a sudden they go through bad times. Those people who hate that person, they'd come out and find this opportunity and say, look, something bad's happened to them. Yeah, he's lost his job, or he's going through depression, or he's going through an illness. So they find opportunity to criticize and insult them. So what does Jamil do? What is she known for? Carrying wood, isn't she? So she comes out, she says that, where's your shaitan? Jibreel alayhi salam, referring to him as shaitan. Where's your shaitan that comes to you with new verses? I think your Lord has left you and he hates you. Seems like, so she found this opportunity to add salt to the wound. So she said to the Prophet ﷺ that I think your your Prophet, your Shaitan, your Lord has left you, and he's angry with you. And she said it in a sarcastic way. So this hurt the Prophet ﷺ, because if you're receiving wahi, and you're, let's say for example, work for a company and your boss is always, giving you duties to do, and all of a sudden it stops, you feel like something's wrong. Like, why am I not getting any wahi? What's happening? People are using this opportunity to insult me. This is possibly affecting me propagating Islam. So Allah revealed these verses. These verses are now, the theme of these verses is going to be what? What's the theme gonna go around? Any idea? If that's the circumstances, consoling, isn't it? Reconciling, comforting the Prophet ﷺ. Yeah. Now, when you comfort someone, what kind of things do you say to them? What kind of words do you use? Yeah, encouraging, comforting. Excellent. So we're going to look at this surah now. Now this surah, I'm going to break it down for you so that it's easy to follow. Okay, so first of all, you have two verses here. Two verses here. Okay, these are two verses. These are two oaths that Allah swears by. Allah makes two oaths. Swears by two things. Then Allah Ta'ala mentions, He clarifies the situation. So the next verse is about clarifying the situation. Right, so this verse is about clarifying. The next verse, or next two verses, Allah Ta'ala mentions what Allah Ta'ala has prepared for the Prophet ﷺ in the coming future. Okay, what's in store for him. So these are what's in store for the Prophet ﷺ. Then Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, He reminds the Prophet ﷺ of his past. So from here, from verse 6, all the way up to verse 8, this is Allah reminding the Prophet ﷺ of his past. And then finally, the Prophet ﷺ is given three imperatives. Three things he's given, or three rulings he's given. You can say commands, prohibition. There's three. Okay, so that's the gist of the surah. So let me just go over it again. So two oaths. Let's give it another color. Two oaths, 1, 2. And then Allah Ta'ala clarifies the matter. Okay, here. Then Allah Ta'ala mentions two promises. And then Allah Ta'ala mentions about the Prophet ﷺ's past and mentions three things. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. And then Allah Ta'ala commands or prohibits the Prophet ﷺ from three things. لا تقهر, لا تنهر, فحدث. Okay, now first of all, the question here is this. I'll translate it for you. So listen to the translation, and then we look at a bit about the verses, the words themselves. So أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وَالضُّحَى, by the morning light. وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, and by the night when it saja. Now the word saja can be translated in various ways. It can mean when it settles. It can mean when it covers. And it can mean when it becomes dark. Now I don't know any word in the English language that can fulfill these three meanings. So that's why I don't know how to translate it. Yeah, so that's what saja means. It has three meanings inside of it. It means to cover, it means to settle, and it means to become dark. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord did not leave you or bid you farewell. Rather, bid you farewell will fit in better. Your Lord did not bid you farewell. وَمَا قَلَى, and nor is He extremely upset. Nor is He upset. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ, and verily or indeed the hereafter is better for you than the first. Or you can translate it like this. and verily the last is better for you than the first. Two ways you can translate it, and you'll see why. وَلَسَوْفَ يُؤْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. And verily your Lord will give you in the future فَتَرْضَى, so you will be satisfied, or so you'll be pleased. أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا. Did he not find you whilst you were an orphan, فَآوَى, and took you in, or took in? Well, that's better. He took in. وَوَجَدَكَ, and he found you ضَالًّا, lost, فَهَدَى, and then directed. وَوَجَدَكَ, and found you in need, or found you whilst in need, and so he enriched. فَأَمَّا الْيَتِيمُ, as for the orphan, لَا تَقْهَرْ. Now again, the word تَقْهَرْ here can have several meanings as well. Okay, تَقْهَرْ can mean to forcefully take, تَقْهَرْ can mean to force someone. تَقْهَرْ can also mean to humiliate someone, to humiliate. تَقْهَرْ can also mean to oppress someone. That's the word qahr. Again, can't find the English word which will fit that best. Maybe you guys can. Wallahu a'lam. أَمَّا السَّائِلِ, and as for the questioner, فَلَا تَنْهَرْ, do not be harsh. فَلَا تَنْهَرْ, do not be harsh. You can also translate this as do not be difficult. And you can also translate this as do not be, or do not reprimand. وَأَمَّا بِنِعْمَةِ رَبِّكَ فَحَدِّثْ, and as for the bounty of your Lord, then convey it, or convey. The word hadith actually means is make it the thing that people will talk about. Make it the thing on the lips of people. Hadith. Make it the hadith of people. Make it the conversation of people. I don't know what English word would be best there. Yeah, because, I mean, you can use subject, but then hadith doesn't mean subject. Subject of conversation, possibly, yeah. Anyway, so that's basically the translation of it. Now let's look at some of the words. Okay, first of all, question is, duha. What's duha? In the Arabic language, duha basically means, let's say for example, this is the daytime. Now in the daytime you have, when the sun rises, okay, that's the sun, and then in the evening the sun sets. Right, so the sun, it follows this routine pattern, goes up and then goes all the way down, and it reaches its pinnacle. When it reaches the pinnacle, that pinnacle is called the zenith, the zawal. Okay, that's the pinnacle it reaches. Sunset, or sunrise, sorry, and sunset. Yeah. Nowadays, sunrise, what time is sunrise these days? Anyone know? $7:40, excellent, mashallah, on the dot. Okay, so let's say for example sunrise is at 7:40. Okay. Sunrise in England, that is. Before someone starts saying, in our country it's at 6 o'clock. Okay. And if you've got a good wife, then your sun is always risen. And if you've got a good husband, then your sun is always risen. Okay. Yes. Excellent. 7 o'clock, yeah. Okay, so 7:40, let's say sunrise. Zenith is, let's say zenith is about 12 o'clock, 12 p.m. The duha, in the Arabic language, you have different times of the day. So the time just before the rising of the sun, yeah, this time that you have before the rising of the sun is called Fajr. That's Fajr, that is. Okay, that's called Fajr. Just before Fajr is called Sahar. So this time here is called Sahar. And then you have other names. So after Fajr, this time after Fajr, this is called Duha. From here all the way up to here, this time is called Duha. That's Duha, that is. That's the Duha time. And then from here up to here, this is called, you can call it Ashi. It's called Ashi. And then Ashi is divided into different segments. Right, from there to there is called Zuhur. And from Zuhur to there is called Asr. And then sunset is called Maghrib. So Maghrib is like after the sun sets. But there you got Maghrib. Right, so that's basically a bit of history of or background on time. So this is Duha. So Allah swears by this time of the day. Now the question is, why does Allah Ta'ala swear by this time of the day? Why doesn't He swear by Zuhur or by Asr? Because these words come in the Quran as well. Zahira comes in the Quran. Asr comes in the Quran. Why doesn't He swear by these times? Any idea? No? No ideas? Okay. So, you see, what you have to understand is that you got Ustadh. Inna lillah. Well, it looks like soon you're not going to have Ustadh. People are fresh in the way. Okay, see, this time is the time where people usually work. This time is very, very important in every society. People usually go work at this time. People get up at this time. People study at this time, go school. The sunlight, even at this time, the sunlight is very beneficial as well. The rays of the sun at this time are very beneficial. So this is a very, very important time of the day. And it's actually the brightest part of the day. It is the brightest. The sun is at the brightest. Not the hottest. Yeah. So it's brightest at this time of the day. Afterwards it becomes hot. This is the brightest. So Allah swears by Duha. What Duha? Swears by the time. This time period. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He swears by Layl. Layl means all this. So from here, Maghrib, all the way up to Fajr, this is called Layl, i.e. night, what we call night. Now, Layl is actually considered to be the darkest part of the day, the darkest part of the 24 hours, the night. إِذَا سَجَى. Now, the link between swearing an oath by these two things, according to the Mufassirin, is this. Is the Prophet ﷺ was finding it unbearable or difficult to be able to stay without wahi. So wahi was coming to him. So to stay without it, it was very difficult for him. So the Mufassirin mentioned 2 points here. Why was this the case? Now, the secret all lies in the word إِذَا سَجَى. You see, إِذَا سَجَى has 3 meanings. It can mean to settle. It can mean to go dark. And what was the third meaning I said? To cover. Excellent. So you see, what happens is this. Allah Ta'ala, He has a natural process on the planet Earth, in the whole universe. And that process, it follows a normal practice. The sun rises, the sun sets, trees grow, trees wither, people are young, people grow old. So in other words, there's always this process of daytime. You have a time when there's things which are active and a time when things are non-active. So the Mufassirin say two things over here, two cycles here. So two things the Mufassirin mention here. Number one is that Allah, He wanted to show the Prophet ﷺ that this cycle of revelation being revealed to the Prophet ﷺ, sometimes it's going to be like duha, like daytime. So sometimes it's going to be bright as day. Yeah, sometimes it's going to be bright, sometimes it's going to be dark. Sometimes it's going to be bright, sometimes it's going to be dark. Bright, dark, bright, dark. So you're going to get this. In other words, if the sun goes down, it doesn't mean Allah is angry with the world. If the sun comes up, it doesn't mean Allah is happy with the world. This is the way the universe runs. This is the way the planet Earth runs. So revelation coming to you and then revelation not coming to you does not mean that Allah is upset with you in any way. It's just the way it works. So that's the first point that Mufassir mentioned. That this is the practice. This is Allah's practice. Number two, the Mufassirin say this, that this is indication towards rest. In other words, revelation is very severe on the Prophet ﷺ. It's very powerful on his heart. Like Allah says in the Quran, that we're going to reveal to you a very powerful discourse, very heavy discourse. And it was very burdensome on the Prophet ﷺ. Because Aisha radiallahu anha, his wife, she says when wahi used to come down on the Prophet ﷺ, we could tell because his body would become very heavy. If he was sitting on a camel, the camel would have to sit down, and his head would burst into sweat, and big beads of sweat would roll down his blessed face. And then when the wahi would stop, he would raise his head, and it was as though he was normal again. So this was a very powerful. Not only was it powerful physically on his body, but also mentally, because the verses that were being revealed were breaking the customs of the Arabs. They were practicing, evil customs in their society, and the Quran was coming and breaking these, was making people question the leaders, question their society, question the practices. And it's very difficult to stand up in front of your community, especially the leaders, and speak against them. So in other words, the Prophet ﷺ, he needs rest. The body, the mind, the soul, it needs rest. Just like humans, in the daytime they work hard, especially at this time, the Duha time, which is where you work hardest. And then afterwards you need rest. And that rest is very, very important to be able to become fresh and to start the day again. So this is a natural process that you have. The third thing that the Mufassirin indicate towards, that's the second thing that is. The third thing Mufassirin indicate towards is that this is actually a test from the Prophet Allah Ta'ala to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. A test. In other words, Allah wants to see how much the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he is zealous, how eager, how motivated is he to serve Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala's commands. That sometimes, when you're put through a lot of difficulties, you're told to do this and this and this, and you've got all these assignments and you've got these house duties and chores, and once it's over, you're so happy. Friday comes, you're excited, right, I've got a weekend now, I can rest. And then Monday comes, Monday's come, and then you're depressed and you start sending texts out to people, boring Monday and blah blah blah, because you don't like it. But the Prophet ﷺ, even though he went through all of these difficulties, he still enjoyed propagating the religion of Allah. He had this concern in his heart for the religion. And this is why he had this sadness inside of him, and that he receiving wahi, zeal for receiving wahi, and also propagating the religion, zeal for propagating it. So the word saja, now look at the word saja. So saja has the meaning of settling. In other words, the settling itself is something naturally humans require. It fits in with rest. Settle and rest. Darkness, because this is a practice of Allah in the universe. Allah brings darkness for the earth, and Allah brings light. So darkness comes, light comes, darkness comes, light comes. And the cover, in other words, this is a cover that Allah Ta'ala He brings over, and a cover as a test. So just like a person is veiled from something for some time, and what's that saying that people have? If you're away from someone, you become more fond of them. What's that saying? There's some saying, I don't know. Yeah, so no one knows it. No, let me. Absence makes heart grow fonder. Yeah, that's the one. So this makes the heart grow fonder. Anyway, now look at this now. Now you see, the word saja, Allah could have used, there's two other words that Allah could have used, and He uses them in the Quran. Absence makes the heart grow fonder. Allah could have used two other words in the Quran. Sometimes when Allah talks about the night, Allah uses the word yaghsha, wal-layli idha yaghsha. Or He could have used the word wal-layli idha yasar. And both of them have a similar meaning. Both of them have a similar meaning about covering. But why is the word saja so perfect? In the Arabic language, there is no other word that can be used in its place. Because you see, the word saja, or the word yaksha, it has the meaning of covering. But covering, unlike the word yasar, so yasar has the meaning of covering, but it also has the meaning of movement. So the movement that's taking place with yaksha and yasar would go against the theme of the verses here, because the verses are to do with covering up and also settling. So the Prophet ﷺ, Allah is talking about the wahi. Allah is saying that the wahi coming down, it becomes covered, covers up, was covered up, and also it becomes settled. You're at peace, you're calm. And this you can't get it with any other word. And this is why the Quran uses the word saja. There is no other word you can use. And to add to that, the pattern of these verses, it ends with duha, saja, qala, ula, fatarda, sukoon, settled. So awa, hada, aghna. There's no other word that you could have used. You could have used yaksha, but then you would have missed all these meanings. So here is the precision of the Quran, where the Quran uses exact, on target words. And it's as though the word saja was created to fit exactly in this place in the Quran. Nowhere else in the Quran is mentioned. Yeah, here, it's only mentioned here. So, Ad-Duha wal-layli idha saja. In other words, I swear by the light, the morning light, the brightest light, and by the night when it covers. In other words, just like the bright light appears, wahi appears. Allah's divine revelation comes to the Prophet ﷺ now and again. And just like the night has to come, the wahi has to cease. It stops sometimes. So duha is talking about extreme brightness, extreme divine light, extreme divine guidance. And darkness is the opposite of the extreme brightness. In other words, the darkness in life without wahi. So some of the ulama have said the duha is referring to the nur, the light of Allah, the nur of Allah, in the form of wahi, and the darkness refers to the absence of nur. And when there isn't any nur, that's when you get evil, that's when you get bad, you get jahal, ignorance, and all these things like start appearing. So wad-duha wal-layli idha saja, swear by the light of the morning and by the night when it becomes dark. Ma wadda'aka, okay, let's move on now. Ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma qala. Ma wadda'aka rabbuka. Okay, three words here that we're going to look at. I'm going to ask you right now. Ma wadda'aka. What's the difference between wadda'a and taraka? Anyone know? Wadda'a and taraka? Yeah, so, okay, intention of returning, possibly to leave. You see, wadda'a, the word wadda'a, To leave for good. Excellent. The word wadda'a is only used when, the Arabs only use it when someone is seeing someone off. So you're going to departures in the airport and you see someone off, right, on your way, bye-bye. Right, so it's used between two people who love each other, like brothers, sisters, family, with that. So when you see someone and you leave them. So ma wadda'aka, and it has the sense of relationship, intimacy. So ma wadda'aka, that's the first one. Number two, rabbuka. Okay, so why wasn't the word taraka used? If Allah said ma tarakaka rabbuka, two problems would have occurred. Number one, taraka has the meaning of negative. Tark in the Arabic language, it's not consoling, excellent. It has a negative meaning, to leave someone. It doesn't have the intimate meaning between two loved ones. And number two, the pattern wouldn't have flowed. So imagine trying to read like this. Ad-Duha wal-layli idha saja ma tarakaka tarakaka tarakaka. So two calves came together. Tarakaka tarakaka. You know, it doesn't sound right. It's very cringy sound. It has a very cringy feeling to it. So ma wadda'aka, it flows very nicely, very, very easily as well. So again, in the Arabic language, you can't get another word that can take its place. Ma wadda'aka. Rabbuka, okay, let's move to Rabbuka. Why doesn't Allah say ma wadda'aka Allah? Allah does not leave you. Any ideas? No? Okay. You always want, okay. There's three things here to note. Three things here. Number one, or three things that come to me. See, the word forsake, it doesn't fit here. Because forsake, it has a negative context to it. It had negative meaning. Wadda'a still has the nice meaning to it. So Rabbuka, number one, the first thing in Rabbuka is this. The word Rabb, it means that being who is the owner, who owns, who nurtures, who takes care, who provides, who does things stage by stage. Now, in the English language, again, I don't know what word you can have that can fulfill all these meanings. I don't know what word there is out there. So, Rabb, first of all, has the meaning of intimacy. Intimacy, the intimate relationship, just like we had there. That's the first thing. The second thing, Rabb has the indication towards process as well. In other words, this is the process of that Allah Ta'ala, He makes the world go through. There's a process of the sun rising and setting. All this system that Allah Ta'ala has created, works like clockwork. Everything works like clockwork. When everything has a precise time, everything happens. And this is Allah being the Rabb. So the wahi appearing and then disappearing and then appearing and then disappearing and then appearing. This is how Allah Ta'ala does things stage by stage, step by step. He nurtures, He provides, He takes care of. He doesn't reveal the whole religion all in one go, because that wouldn't befit the Islam, the foundations of Islam. But it wouldn't befit Allah Ta'ala revealing Islam to the creation, because it would be just too burdensome. That's the second. Okay, so that's one, intimacy. Number two is Allah Ta'ala does things stage by stage. Number three, Rabbuka, your Lord, indicating towards Allah has not left him. Just because wahi is not coming doesn't mean Allah has left you. Doesn't mean that. Allah is always there. He is still nurturing you, still providing for you, still listening, still watching. So these are three things that are, and if you use the word Allah, you wouldn't have got these three things. So again, look how perfect the Quran is. Every single word has a precise usage which you can't get by using another word. وَمَا قَلَى. And thirdly, for the next part of the verse, قَلَى. what's the difference between this word and this word? Those who know Arabic, can you tell? What's the difference? Sorry, not this word. Oops. This word and this word. وَدَّعَكَ and قَلَى. What's the difference? What's missing here? مَا وَدَّعَكَ مَا قَلَى. No? Okay, it's the kaf, isn't it? This kaf, you. Yeah. Ka is pronoun, dhamir. So, did not leave you. And it should have been مَا قَلَاكَ. So, why doesn't Allah use ka over here? So here is indication towards intimacy with Prophet ﷺ. In other words, Allah does not even want to mention hatred with the Prophet ﷺ together. So qala means to extremely hate someone. What's the word for it in English? When you really hate someone. You hate their guts. If you say you hate their guts. So in other words, Allah despised the worst kind of form. Detest. Yeah, detest would be excellent. That's a good one. But it means to hate someone with extreme anger as well. So Allah did not want to mention ka with the Prophet ﷺ. Qala with the Prophet ﷺ. So he said, ma qala. Don't worry. He is not angry. And you use this, you know when you use this, for example, like someone says to you, oh, you're not talking to me and you're not answering my calls. You're not talking to me and you're not answering my calls. Me and my calls. So then the person says, no. I was ill. I didn't talk or I didn't answer because I was ill. So he doesn't say, I didn't answer you or I didn't talk to you because I was ill. Because that has the meaning of, oh, look, I'm fed up, man. Okay, I was ill, man. So it has a negative meaning to it anyway. So in other words, the verse is indicating towards the love that Allah Ta'ala has for the Prophet. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ. Your Lord did not leave you. So وَدَّعَ, you can have kaf with that because two loved ones, they do, say farewell to each other. But مَا قَلَى, that the Prophet ﷺ, in other words, that not even the slightest hatred or detest exists between Allah and the Prophet ﷺ. Not even the slightest. Anyway, that's that. So you can see how it all fits in. Now, look at this. This is interesting as well. Ad-Duha, Ad-Duha. This is talking about the early part of the day, isn't it? And the interesting thing is, it was the early part of Islam. In other words, if you imagine Islam like from sunrise, the rise of Islam, until the sunset of Islam. Islam didn't set, but just for example, imagine you drew a line like this in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. What can you see? Ajib, eh? It's like this was the sunlight part where the intensity of the revelation was at its peak in the community. This was where it became still, where it became zenith, and this was when it became easy. Because after Zuhr, after the afternoon, when the sun starts going down, it becomes easy. So this is the time, the Prophet ﷺ, when it became easy for them and people started accepting Islam in the masses. So that's also indication towards the way that the Islam was revealed as well. Anyway, وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Now, the tone of this verse as well, decline, possibly, but this is how everything works. Imam what's his name? Ibn Khaldun. He actually says that everything that starts off new, every single thing that starts off new, it lasts for 50 years. It's at its peak for 50 years, and then after that it starts to decline. Everything, and he actually goes through in the Muqaddimah ibn Khaldun. You can read it. Muqaddimah ibn Khaldun, anyone who's interested can read that. And he goes through this and he talks about even Islam, and he even talks about companies, set up a company or you start a school or anything. Muqaddimah Ibn Khaldun. Khaldun. Okay, now if you look at the tone of the verse as well, the tone. Look at the tone. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. When do you speak like that? When do you hear people speaking like that? Soothing, isn't it? And when do you usually people speak like that? Like a child, or come on. I'm getting stressed, you guys. Just saying it. It's used at bedtime for kids. Yeah, possibly. It depends what kind of bed stories it had. Like a lullaby, isn't it? Or it's like when you're speaking to someone you love. When you're speaking to your loved one, you speak to your wife, or you speak to your husband, or you speak like that. It has a nice love kind of feeling, lovely, romantic kind of passionate feeling. وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. So even the sound of the verses has an intimate lullaby kind of sound to it, flow to it. Look how amazing that is. How could the Prophet ﷺ have come up with this? How could he have selected each word perfectly to fit so many meanings, to flow in such a way, the sounds, even the sound, the phonetics of the surah, they fit exactly with the theme of the context that it was revealed in. And this is why the kuffar, when they heard these kind of surahs, they were like gobsmacked. Like how is it that the Prophet ﷺ is coming up with these verses and people are just being amazed by them? Okay, we don't have much time. I thought I would get through all of this. Anyway, I'll just try to finish off a few more, and then maybe next week we can listen. Okay. وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. Now look, Allah mentions to the Prophet ﷺ two like universal rules. These are two universal rules for the Prophet ﷺ. Number one, the hereafter is better for you than the life of this world. That's one way you can translate it. Another way you can translate it is, the end is better for you than the beginning. The last is better for you than the first. That's another way you can translate it. And the second rule is this: لَسَوْفَ يُعْتِيكَ رَبُّكَ فَتَرْضَى. Your Lord will soon give you, فَتَرْضَى, and you will be satisfied. You'll be pleased. Now look at this. لَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ. This la at the beginning, la. Does anyone know why in the Arabic language sometimes you start off a sentence with la? Emphasis, ta'keed. Why do you use emphasis? Why do you use emphasis? Like, why do you need to emphasize something? Attention or emphasis? Like, what kind of audience do you have when you have to emphasize something? Speaking to convince someone, isn't it? Yeah, we did that this week as well. So look, وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. Look at this. لَلْآخِرَةُ. In other words, is the Prophet ﷺ not convinced? Is the Prophet ﷺ not convinced? Is he someone who's in doubt? No, he'd never been in doubt, would he? So why is Allah saying this to him then? Why didn't Allah just say, الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى? Possibly because of that. Yeah, removal of all doubts, all kind of thoughts that can come in the mind in life. And even though you're comforted time and time again by hadith and by verses of the Quran, that look, don't worry, Allah is watching, Allah knows, Allah's the best of planners, Allah. Sometimes inside you think to yourself, you know what, but nothing's changing, why isn't my situation changing? Why isn't this happening? Why? Because you want everything quick. But sometimes the best things come to those who wait. So وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. It may seem as though the situation is really bad, but the kuffar are persecuting you, insulting you, throwing animals' feces and their intestines on you when you pray salat, insulting your family, belittling you, humiliating you in public, calling you a liar, making your life a misery. It may seem like that, all of that, but remember, the end is always better than the first. That the situation you're going through in the beginning, the end, when retrospectively, when you look back at it, you'll realize that the end was much better for you. Long term, the result you're going to get in the end is always going to be better. And in the hereafter, what you're going to get in the hereafter is billions and billions and billions of times better than what you get in the dunya. It's unimaginable. الْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. So don't worry about it. Be comforted by that. Now you see here, Allah Ta'ala, He doesn't use the word dunya. He says ula. Anyone know why He doesn't say ad-dunya? Why doesn't He say dunya? Like, why didn't He say وَلَلْ آخِرَةِ, like akhirah, hereafter, akhirah khayrun laka min ad-dunya. It would rhyme as well. If you had dunya, it actually would rhyme. Because لَلْ آخِرَةُ khayrun laka min ad-dunya. Anyone know? In all matters of hardship, sabr. But then that still would come under dunya, wouldn't it? It's to do with the meaning of dunya. Okay, look, you know the word dunya. In the Quran, nowhere in the dunya has Allah mentioned good things about it. Like He hasn't mentioned any sort of happiness of the dunya, or anywhere has Allah linked dunya to success, or dunya to something which pleases a person. You won't find that anywhere. Because the word dunya has the meaning of something which is low, something which is belittled, something which is very shortcoming, very quick. So dunya is mentioned in a negative way in the Quran. Although Allah has created us and we live in the dunya, and He's given us all the dunya to use. Dunya, in other words, He doesn't want our attention to go to dunya. Never does Allah want our attention to be distracted by the dunya. So Jannah to me, akhirah, excellent. That's one reason. The other reason is ula also has the meaning of, in the Arabic language, you see, sometimes what happens, in the Arabic language, like in English, we say right hand and left hand. Yeah, it's funny because in Arabic, for right hand, you say yameen, which has the meaning of barakah in there, has the meaning of blessings, yameen. And for left hand, they say yusr or yasar. And yusr actually has mean easiness. Yeah, so in other words, even the Arabs, when they use something which is normally associated to negative like the left hand, they even use a good word for that, so it doesn't have a bad meaning. So ula as well, ula has the meaning of first. In other words, the dunya, the life that we're living in this dunya, Allah has even given it a nice connotation, that it's the first. It's the first before the last comes. It's your first opportunity. It's the thing that you're living immediately at the moment. Use it as best as possible. You only have one first. You only have one dunya that you're living in, one life that you're living in. And also, ula also gives the meaning of like your immediate situation as well, at the moment. And akhirah, like I said, is last. So the first and the last. Akhirah and ula. Okay. I think we'll stop there. We'll stop there because I don't think I'll be able to go through all of that, the rest of it. I'll have to leave that for next week, inshallah. Okay, so just to sum up a few things. Right. So this verse that we've done up to here, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى وَالضُّحَى وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا سَجَى, 2 oaths that Allah swears. And when Allah swears an oath, these are amazingly great things in the sight of Allah. And it fits exactly with the context of the surah, because duha is to do with the brightness of the day. Layl is to do with the night and the disappearing of the light, the darkness that comes. And the nighttime is usually associated with people thinking a lot. People think more at nighttime than they do in the day. And people usually find the nighttime more difficult than the day. It's burdensome upon them. They go through a lot of difficulties at nighttime as well. And nighttime is also associated with bad things happening as well. مَا وَدَّعَكَ رَبُّكَ وَمَا قَلَى. Your Lord has not bid you farewell. He hasn't left you. He hasn't said goodbye. It's not over. وَمَا قَلَى. Nor is he upset at all. He is not upset with you, don't worry. He is not upset. So the intimacy, that the revelation not coming does not automatically mean that Allah has left you. It just means that there's some other wisdom that Allah Ta'ala has planned, which is beyond our understanding. وَلَا الْآخِرَةُ. And remember, if situation is that at the moment you're going through difficulty, later on it's always going to be better for you. And this is actually a promise from Allah which came true. Because if you look in Islam, the timeline of Islam, at the beginning it was very difficult. Who would imagine that one man with a handful of followers would become so powerful and so successful that not only would his people enter into his faith, not only would the surrounding villages and cities enter into the faith, not only would the whole continent enter into the faith, but 1,400 years down the line, there's going to be a guy sitting in England, in Birmingham, who's going to be teaching his religion to people who are around the world. Yeah, who would have ever thought that? Ajib, huh? So the hereafter, the coming, the last, is always better for you than the dunya, than the first, than the immediate situation you're going through. So this is a promise to Allah Ta'ala, and Allah Ta'ala has fulfilled this promise, because the Prophet ﷺ was given the best. We had the hereafter is always going to be better for him, and the later years of his life were always better for him. Anyway, that's that. There's some of the things I thought I'd mention to you guys. Because obviously you can tell there's more things that I could mention here, but because of lack of time and because of some of the topics that are a bit advanced. And this is why, guys, learning the Arabic language, very, very important, guys. See, when you learn the Arabic language, you can appreciate these words so much. Sometimes, like, my brain freezes. Yeah. Like, my brain freezes when I eat ice cream. But sometimes my brain freezes when I read some of these verses. I think to myself, it's impossible for any human to have come up with this. That your brain just freezes and you just stop and you just pause for a moment and you thank Allah. That alhamdulillah, you can understand these words. You want to understand more as well. You make dua to Allah, Allah increase me in knowledge, to be able to appreciate His words. And if you don't know the Arabic language, you miss out on so much, so much of Allah's amazing Quran. You won't be able to understand. And this is why the Quran, when it was revealed to the Arabs who spoke the language, who understood the intricacies of the Arabic language, and when they heard these verses, they were just like shocked, like, what the, how is it that this man, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, is coming up with such intricate verses that penetrate into the heart and they speak volumes? Powerful words they were. And they weren't just words that academic people could understand. Even the layman, a child, a woman, a man, the senior, the elderly, the young, the non-Muslim, the Muslim, the leader, the servant, everyone could understand these, and it penetrated, hit their hearts, and it would make them cry as well. Anyway, what lessons do we learn from this? Here's just a few lessons. Okay, lesson number one, I think, is very important for us to understand, is that we have to trust in Allah. Sometimes what happens is, just like the sky becomes cloudy, and sometimes it becomes so cloudy that we don't realize the sun is still there. Yeah, sometimes you can live in England, yeah, and sometimes you think to yourself, oh, I know the sun ain't come out today. It has come out. It's just that the situation, the weather, the circumstances that we're going through has just blocked the sun from penetrating. Yeah, so we've got to trust in Allah. Allah is always there. And we have to worship Allah. We have to try and be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be able to increase our consciousness and awareness of Allah ta'ala. Number two is that Allah, He is the controller of the universe, and everything that He does is in His control. He is the one that makes the sun come out. He's the one that makes the sun disappear. He's the one that brings the night. He's the one that brings the revelation. He's the one. So even though we go through difficulties in our life, it doesn't mean that Allah has left us. It doesn't mean that Allah is helping our enemies. It doesn't mean anything like that. It just means that this is some wisdom that Allah Ta'ala has given us, or some wisdom that Allah Ta'ala has put us through. And it's a test from Allah, and Allah Almighty, He knows best about His tests. And finally, last lesson is this, is a person should never judge themselves or anyone by circumstances. Never ever should you judge anyone by the circumstances that you're going through. Yeah, so if a person is going through some difficulty in life at the moment, when you go through a bit of depression, or you go through a bit of problems at home or at work or anything, what tends to happen is this: you think that there's no way out for you. You lose all hope in Allah, in life. You filled up with despair, and it leads you to bad thoughts, suicidal thoughts even. May Allah save us. But the reality is, we have to understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has things prepared for us in the future that we don't know about, and we have to come to terms with that as well. So when we have hope in Allah Ta'ala, that Allah Ta'ala has provided us with much better in the hereafter, and what's to come is always going to be better for us, as a Muslim, as an obedient person, than what has passed, inshallah. Okay, that's just 3 things I thought. What do you guys think? What kind of lessons can you learn from this? You can write your comments in there. Everyone should try and write at least one lesson that you've learnt. Sunlight, and that's ajib, because that sunlight is the best treatment for depression, and is it vitamin D? The sun provides vitamin D to the body. Ajib, look at that. How dark is the tunnel? There's always light at the end. Put our trust in Allah. Anything else, guys? Trust, to be motivated. Always you need motivation. Even the Prophet ﷺ needs motivation. So if he, the best of creation, needed motivation, who are we then? We need to motivate each other. We need to help each other. We need to support each other. And even if someone is doing a small thing in life, right, we need to support them, whatever it may be, and never belittle people's efforts. Anything else, guys? Come on, everyone should be writing down something. At least one thing you should write down. At least one. Write more than one, but at least one. Don't worry. Waffles are good. Okay. Be happy. There will always be ups and downs. Ups and downs. You'll always get ups and downs, guys. Be happy even through hardships. Keep tawakkul excellent. Trust in Allah. Very, very important. Don't judge yourself harshly. Have hope in Allah. Trust in Allah's plan. All the above. Ameen. Are you one of those guys? This is Ameen to everything. Amazing sequence patterns. Amazing how everything fits in. The phonetic sounds exactly fit in. The meanings of the words exactly fit in. The sequence of wording is just perfect. How everything just starts off from the morning. The surah starts off from the early morning, and it goes, turn to Allah for comfort, true comfort. Turn to Allah, etc. Balagha, Saja. They actually call it Fawa'im. We said Fasid in the Quran. We don't say Saja. We say Fawasid. No, you've forgotten that, haven't you? Come on guys, there's loads of names on this list. Everyone should at least say one thing. And the other amazing thing that you're going to see in this surah is how things are mentioned in pairs as well. I'll mention more about that next lesson if I have it. Things are mentioned in pairs like Duha and Layla mentioned, and then Wadda'aka and Qala mentioned, and then Akhira and Ula mentioned. Yeah, how things pair up. Yeah, again, numbers, keeping the pairs, the wording. They're opposites, aren't they? They're kind of opposites. Yeah, anyone else? Come on guys, I see loads of names on here. Before I mention you guys when I see you in class. Okay, they are humble. Excellent. Oh, the rest of class are humble. Cough, cough. Have an intimate relationship with Allah. Ask Allah for all our needs. Strive hard. Yeah, definitely. Strive hard. Work hard. Know that Allah is watching you. Allah is there with you. If you fall, Allah will help you up. If you slip, Allah is gonna, teach you some new lessons. Yeah, perseverance in times of difficulty. Yeah, and one of the things that none of you guys have mentioned is the etiquette of language between two lovers. Two people who love each other. How precise is the language? Sometimes your husband or your wife or the one that you love sends you a letter or a text. You read every single word of it. You're very particular about the words. Oh, why did they mention this word for? Why did they mention this word for? So that there's no kind of, like you send your wife a text and says, right, I'm a oi now. Oh, I'm oi. Or no salam. Yeah, so it's like every single word is looked at carefully. And Shirah, excellent. Opening up is your name as well. Keep qalbi salim. Excellent. I hope qalbi salim doesn't mean like the heart of Brother Salim. There's no one feel down sometimes. Yeah, definitely. Very good point there. You are going to feel down in life, guys. That's nighttime comes. Every single day nighttime comes. You will feel down in life now and again. Yeah, but you just have to remember to motivate yourself, boost your morale. Yeah, the masters of language have died. Yeah, but we need more masters. So we're the new masters. We're the ones that want to learn the Arabic language. If the owner of a Ferrari dies, it doesn't mean no one's going to drive the Ferrari again. Someone else is going to sit in his place and start driving it. And you don't want like a reckless young kid to just jump on the driving seat. Yeah. Anyone else? Come on. There's some people that haven't even said a word. Zaid, you, mashallah, you're sipping away at your tea or something or eating pakoras. Yeah, was that right? Okay, I was close.